Hey, care partners. Just wondering what you have planned for today. Just because we have some type of memory failure, it doesn't mean we stop doing life and we stop doing activities, especially stuff that we love to do. And you know what else we don't stop? Needing to have purpose. And I think sometimes we want to, and being a nurse, I wanted to put my children in a cotton box and just keep them safe. And thankfully, I'm married to Mr. Outdoor Adventures. And so we had a we had a good combination of being able to raise children who were adventurous and did exciting what I would call some risky things, but I mean they're just well-rounded, where mom would have kept them very safe. And I think we have to think about our individuals that we're caring for that have maybe a type of dementia. They still need purpose. And just because a part of their brain is challenged doesn't mean their whole brain is challenged. And I could say that over and over and over again is that, and I've worked with people who thought, keeping them in all the time would keep them safe and then they wouldn't get roused up or there wouldn't be opportunities for them to get upset and things. But we can certainly stifle somebody and boy, we can suffocate a person too who has a personality to be with people. So today we're going to talk about, how can we, with dementia, how can we continue to have some activities? And, your person won't fit everything because if you've met one person with dementia, yeah, you've met one person with dementia. But some of these techniques might help you and feel free to share them with other people. So let's get started with the PowerPoint. And yeah, so how do we continue activities? How do we do that inside their wheelhouse and what we're able to do? And sometimes we have to bring in help. So first thing I feel like we need to do is assess their ability, and their willingness to have an activity today. Because you know what? People living with dementia, there are certain things that we can control, but there are certain things that we can't control. And sorry, I went ahead there. There's certain things that we can't control. And I know Tipa's talked about this a lot. And, we can maybe control how much time we spend with them. We can control, simply put, maybe a location we're going to go, something like that. We can control, time, maybe how much time we spend with them, but there are plenty of things we can't control. And maybe you've heard me say this before, but with my mom, when I would come in to get her up after her nap, we never knew where she was going to be in her mind and in a space and time. And so we can't control the disease. I couldn't control whether she was back in time or whether she was going to be tracking with me. I couldn't control her mood in that moment. I mean, we tried to do everything to keep things perfect, but it wasn't. But you need to assess that every time you come in. I know a lot of people are really focused on what stage, and Tipa has her beautiful gems instead of a stage 2 or a stage 7 and stage 14. There's really no stage 14, but I'm just frustrated by the stage because listen, just because someone is, an emerald this morning, it doesn't necessarily mean, they're going to be an emerald tonight. And I just want to give you a heads up. Every time you come in, approach from the front, right? Put that smile on your face, greet them with a pleasant attitude. Don't share all your problems with them, but you need to have your radar on to see where they are at this moment in time because we can't control their mood. We can't control how their tummy feels right now. We can't control whether they've moved their bowels or not. And let me tell you, if you plan an activity, it's good to know. And so we try this routine thing, but just realize that every time we come in, we need to assess them. And we need to assess them whether they're enthusiastic to go or willing to go do an activity or whether maybe not so much. And we got to go to plan B. And I'm all about going to plan B. If you have to go to plan B, let's go to plan B. What's really cool is if you can establish routine, I just feel like you are ahead of the game. And maybe before you found this diagnosis, maybe there was already good routines. Maybe their routine was to get up and get dressed, get up and maybe get a shower and brush their teeth. And so then later on, you know what? Some of these routines, it's so great because they tend to keep doing those things if it was really a part of their life. And so, or maybe it's the way they got ready for bed, or like I said, changing the clothes. That can be a challenge in itself. And so, but if you don't have routines, let's see what we can establish. Some new routines. Maybe it's a routine to get a walk or a routine to take the medication. Um, but I can tell you that if you can start establishing good routines, especially for hygiene, some of these other activities I'm going to talk about, that will put you way ahead of the game. And when it comes to being able to encourage and get them to do these activities. So, next on the list, we're going to have next slide. Um, so I'm going to go through a sample of activities that we can control. I wish I could, cover everything that I'd love to talk to you about. There's just not enough time, but I hope you'll come back again. So, this is just a little sample of activities that you can work on with them, and maybe some ideas on how we can continue to help these individuals with these things. So, hygiene is really important, and hygiene tends to be one of those things that they can resist. They can start to resist. Now, I've had individuals, Tipa always says, if you met one person with dementia, well, you got one person. And because they're all so different, what's different? Oh my gosh, everything. Personality, culture, um, whether they're a morning person or not a morning person, whether they're gruff and they like to be right all the time, or, whether they're passive, or, like to be in control of everything. Maybe depending on what they did for a living, or maybe they were stay-at-home mom and they just enjoy baking and doing things around the house. So we got to make sure hygiene's got to be in there somewhere. We're not going to fight about it, but if we can again establish a routine. What I found is that some people do not want their family member giving them, doing hygiene with them. And so it may be we need to get a different person to do this. Did you know most people living with dementia will do something like hygiene better for a stranger than for the person that's so familiar? It's very interesting that, but I've seen that happen. I've seen that work. And I just want to tell some of you die-hard family caregivers out there, just try it. Try bringing in someone. And maybe that someone initially, maybe that someone doesn't run them to the shower as soon as they come in. That probably wouldn't be great, because I really still believe that we were never taught to just take our clothes off for a stranger. And so I think that can be a barrier. But if that person were to come in and we establish a relationship, we visit for a little while, maybe we share um, a meal together or just a snack together, or we just small talk, and then it's time. And then who knows, maybe we give that person, depending on where they are in the assessment. You came in and you found out that, well, they're really at this level today and not at this level. And so that'll help you plan how we're going to approach the activity. And sometimes they're ready to go and ready to get cleaned up, and it's part of their routine. But other times it's not. And maybe you need to give them an either or choice. You know what? Were you thinking, Dad, of just were you going to get a shower or just wash up? And honestly, guys, both of those choices are good choices. I'll take either one. It's better than, I had one woman who didn't shower for 3 months. And you know what? Guess what? She didn't die. She didn't die. She didn't even get a urinary tract infection. I mean, she changed her briefs, changed her clothes. Fortunately, she didn't have skin issues. We were just really thankful. We needed to get the right person in there to establish a relationship with her so that we could develop some new routines. We needed to go slow, but she didn't die. And I think sometimes we absolutely freak out when Dad hasn't showered in a week. Okay. We need to figure it out. I'm not telling you not to care and not to do something, especially if he's incontinent. Then we got to come up with some plan Bs. But the hygiene thing is definitely on the list, and it's high on the list for a lot of people, especially if they're incontinent. All right. I know, working with a family right now, that the caregivers, when he gets in the shower, he's pretty willing to get in the shower, but the caregivers need to snatch up the dirty clothes and put new ones out. Otherwise, he would wear the same clothes every day. and he has no, idea that there's food stain on there from the day before, and he's got no sense of smell. Okay, so there's no sense of smell, so he doesn't know if he's stinky or not, and he doesn't care. Frequently, I mean, my mother coulda cared less. She might have wore that brief for days and days, and so I just want you to know that, hygiene is something we need to work on. If we can get a good routine, that's even better. You know what I have found is that, some of these individuals have been going to a barber or to someone to do their hair for years and years, another routine. How about if we could keep that going? Especially if they know the person, there's familiarity with the person who does their hair or gives them a shave or whatever it's going to be. And people feel better right after they've had their hair done or had the barber take care of you. I'll tell you a story though. The shop who used to do my hair years ago, they had a big challenge. And she said, "See that lady sitting over there? She's probably going to blow up any minute." And I said, "Tell me more." And she said, "Well, her husband just drops her off here, and then she gets pretty anxious, and then next thing you know, she's hollering and carrying on, and she storms out." And I said, "Wow, what do we know about her?" Well, he said she's got some early, dementia, but he can't just drop her off like that. And they said, "We're about to tell him he can't bring her in here anymore." And I said, "Okay, let's hit the pause button." So what I'm saying is probably a husband who needs a couple of hours to himself, a woman who might enjoy this if we could figure out how to make it happen. And what I noticed about her is she was looking around in a very frightened way. And the other hairdressers there, I, t- I told them that when she makes eye contact with you, you need to smile and give her a little wave and say, "Mary, it's so great to see you," and change your whole demeanor about her and your interaction. You know what? They were afraid of her. They had seen her act out, and it's all they knew. And out of that fear, they kind of gave her the hairy eyeball when she'd get up because they were afraid of her. And so I told them, "You guys, okay, who has to change? We do." And you know what? I got a call the next week, and they said she had been in, and, because that day I was there, she got so upset and she left, and that's when I asked questions about her. He had come and gotten her, and that's when they said, "We're about to tell her she can't come back." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute." And, so the next time she came in, they, were proactive to reach out and greet her, get her a bottle of water. She probably was, 78, 80 years old, and then keep making eye contact. They would approach her from the front, and they said it changed everything, and the whole interaction was better. So guys, I just want to let you know that there are people out there in the world who are afraid because they don't know what to do. They don't know how to respond or react to a person who does things differently. And if all they have seen is that person act out, well, they're going to be more afraid, and they're just going to be like, "I don't know what to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this." Not knowing that the person with the memory challenges, they're really struggling. And how do we come alongside and serve these people in a better way? Okay. Something else you might think of, before I switch the slide is, um, mom might not be up for hygiene, but she might be up for a spa day. Might be up for a spa day. And maybe the two of you go get your hair done together, and she's in one chair and you're in one chair. That might be fun. Or spa day could be, you've given part of the bath, but then things started to get rough and she wasn't going to let you finish that. And so maybe then it's spa day and you sit her down and you let her have her feet in warm water and you put lotion on her legs, and maybe you do paint her toenails or something like that. We got to make it a positive experience, but don't be afraid to don't be so rigid in your list, that you won't be flexible with that person. All right. So let's go back and forth on this. And so let's get more, let's be able to be more flexible. Yeah, with the person. We don't know how they're going to react, but I'm just want to remind you that who has to change? We do. Okay. Talking about doctor's appointments. One thing we don't wanna do is, give this person a month's notice and then every 2 days remind them, "We got that appointment coming up. We got that appointment coming up. Hey, don't forget, we got that appointment coming up." Yeah, that's not good. You're gonna have her so anxious about this. And then they might be saying, "When's the appointment?" or calling you every 2 hours. "When's the appointment? When's the appointment?" So let's be wise about that. If you're noticing that upsets her, well, you want do you even need to give her a day's notice? If her short term is damaged, does it help at all to give her a big notice? Or, "Hey, mom, you know what? Today's the day we go to the doctor and then we get lunch afterwards, so I can't wait. Did you think you'd like to get, a hamburger, or are you more into a salad today? Would you like to go here or here?" And we focus on that. We focus on what's coming up after it if she doesn't like her doctor. The other thing is I would try to go into the appointment with your loved one. Now you have to be careful here because sometimes what happens is that the physician might ask her how she's doing, and they have that right side ability of their brain ability to be cordial, and they might say, "Fine, fine, yeah, fine, good." And then they look at you, the, spouse or the daughter or son, and say, "So, she's saying looks good. This isn't exactly what you called about." And you can get pitted against that person. And I just want to let you know that there's some training we can do for physicians, um, or physician assistants, nurse practitioners. They may not always understand that the drive home can be really terrible, and they may have just slammed a wedge in your relationship with your loved one. Because if they feel betrayed by you, for some, they hang on to that and they may not even remember what it was you did to upset them, but it can still mess things up. And so I've gotten to the point where I write out the bullet points of what's wrong, what's going on, the new stuff, and hand that to the receptionist as mom or dad is sitting down. And then in the appointment, hoping they let me come in, I'm on their team. And so if she said she's doing fine, but on that note, I put in there, what's going on. Hey, in that appointment, don't pit me against her. I won't answer any questions differently than what she says, but you and I should definitely talk privately at another time, either on they got this my chart thing where we do it, through like email type stuff, or maybe a phone call later, or maybe you have an opportunity to talk to me while she's getting her blood drawn or something. But let's be careful and cautious, and let's be willing to train up. um Doctors who mean well, but they maybe just haven't been taught a couple of these details on how to help you maintain a great relationship with your loved one. And so I think writing down some of the things that are going on is great, but we definitely want to have the part in there about, I'm not going to, please don't pit me against my mom or whatever, because it can really mess up the relationship. Um, let's see. So we don't want to do a lot of reminding about the appointment. That'll only get them so anxious. And if you have to, let's focus on the next appointment coming up. And so she can be excited about that. Okay. So we got the doctor's appointments. Um, Next thing, maybe going to a place of worship. For some, this is maybe they've gone to this church or this temple for a long time and they know lots of people. And maybe the music is quite enjoyable because that can be a right-sided brain thing. And so that can bring them a lot of joy. They may not want to change their clothes before they go. That might happen. Some people might not understand that. I think it's great if you can talk to the people who normally talk to your mom or dad or your spouse and let them know what's going on. Give them a little bit of training. We always approach from the front. They lose peripheral vision. We don't want to startle. We want your tone and body language to be pleasant when you approach. Don't come in too quick. Wait till they recognize you and please introduce yourself. Okay. Don't ask questions. How about you tell them stories? And we keep this going. I've seen this at my own church, people who are struggling and they just love when you're like, "Oh, Mary, so great to see you. Hey, George, looking good, looking good." And you pay them compliments, but you don't go up and drill them with questions. How's it going? How are they doing now? Oh my gosh, I heard the news. How's it going? Are they really forgetful? And the person's right there. People just don't always know. But that's why I do what I do, and you can share this information with them and be able to make it a great experience for your loved one. But if at any point it becomes a bad experience, don't fight about it. You know what? You can frequently see, enjoy, your services online now on TV or, through your TV, things like that. So we have options, but I'm just thinking, the bottom line is, guys, we wanna keep them as active as possible as long as we can. And I told you, just because they can't remember something doesn't mean their whole brain is damaged, and we just put them in that cotton box and kinda starve them of life. I believe they'll go down quicker if you do that. So, just because I can't remember everything or just because I can't find all my words doesn't mean I don't wanna go for a walk in a park and enjoy nature or do some beautiful things or continue to go to my place of worship and see people that I love, even if I can't remember their names. There was a time with one woman that I would whisper in her ear, "That's Joan." And then she would turn and say, "Joan." And it made the lady really happy. So sometimes we just clue them in who it is that's there so they're not going to stress about it. Okay. No stress. That's what I want. No stress. Let's see. Next on the list here. Shopping. How's shopping going? It's an activity that a lot of people like doing, not everybody, but I would take them to a familiar place. Um, I would and for some individuals, they're really good at doing the perimeter of the grocery store, but going up and down all those aisles, my goodness, I don't know about you, but some of the grocery stores around here have they're huge. I mean, you can buy a dining room table if you want to, and there's restaurants in there. You can buy lawn furniture. It's just gotten crazy. And so sometimes I advise that you let them have the cart and because that's it's almost like a walker, and they can walk along, and, my sister does this with my dad, and she does the perimeter, and then she goes up and down the aisles for him, getting what he wants. They have a list, and it works out great. He's still productive, he still, enjoys doing that, but it doesn't wear him out, and that's a great activity. Um you also have to know, again, did we assess the person and are they up for going out today, right? Are they enthusiastic and at a place where they can go out, like I told you in the beginning? Because if they're not, then we're not going to do that activity. Um, but the other thing you have to be conscientious about is when say you're taking them out for coffee, say they've always loved to get coffee. And there was a woman, we would take her for coffee, but we had to be very concerned about where we sat, whether it was too noisy, and because with her frontotemporal, her filters were kind of out for people walking by, and, she could be rude, and, so we would have to position her either to be looking at us. There was a gentleman I had who'd get really anxious if he was on one side of the room and then facing all those people. It was way too much, but if we just positioned him just looking at me or looking at the caregiver on one side, it was pretty quiet, and he would enjoy that. He would enjoy going out. As far as restaurants and things, I would choose places that are familiar. Like I said, quiet places. If they were hearing aids, just let me just let you know that can be really, really hard. If it's a noisy room and you've got hearing aids, my in-laws tell me it's really, really tough. And, my dad, the same. We were at a restaurant once and he was miserable because I don't know, it was big open ceilings and the place was just too noisy. It was really upsetting to him. And so I think taking them to a familiar place, what do you do about the menu and letting them order? I've heard some individuals say, well, we just give them plenty of time and let them spend time reading. Well, if they can still read well, that's good, but, if you feel like you're running into, a barrier there, I would say pick 2 things out on the menu that you know they like, and you might say, "Oh my gosh, dad, I know what you like. Let's see. You want that meatloaf, okay, with the mashed potatoes, or you're gonna have that fried chicken. I just think you're gonna like one of those." And sometimes you've given them a break on understanding all the writing and picking something out. You've given them an either/or situation, and frequently, they can handle that, at least at some stages of the game. And then later, it may get to the point where they can't do the either/or, and you'll select something. But at that point, it may not even be appropriate to take them out. It may cause too much anxiety. It's not worth them blowing up, in a situation like that, especially in a public place. So The either or is a great thing, and whatever they choose, say, "I was hoping you'd choose that. I love that, and I figured you loved it too." You also need to think about going out during their best hours. What's that mean? So, if your loved one is a morning person, well, then maybe that's the time to take them to a place like that. If your loved one likes to nap at 2 o'clock, well, then that's not the time to take them out to a public place. Um, but maybe they're great at 4, but they gotta be home by 7 because they're gonna wind down and, the wheels can fall off with too much stimulation at that point in time. So things to think about. Location, things we can control. Time, things we can control. And how much time we spend there. Those things are all very important, when you're taking them out. Let's see. Oh, this was something I wanted to tell you a story. So, I had a caregiver take a woman, it was the woman with the frontotemporal. She was a high class lady and she was used to shopping at these high end stores in a rich part of town. And so the caregiver did take her, and the daughter had given her a boundary of, $50. This was years ago. $50, that's all you can spend. And this woman was probably 80 years old and still her hair was perfect and her makeup was great. She had her jewelry. She was a great lady, and we were trying to keep her, in her routines as best we could, and the daughter was fine with taking her shopping because she still enjoyed it. But, in the store, the caregiver notified right away that this person had dementia and, please be patient with us. And, that's on the back of my business card. And so she would show them the back of the business card. And it's amazing how people get on board with you, but write it on a piece of paper and keep it in your purse. You can pull that out at the restaurant, for the cashier, at the grocery store, pull it out anywhere. But the caregiver did pull it out at this high end, clothing store. And, it's interesting that the lady tried on a bunch of stuff, and honestly, she brought to the counter 10 items, and the caregiver was like, "Oh, no." And so she cued one of the women, not ringing her up, but the other woman. She said, "Can you take my person and offer her a job here?" And so she pulled her to the side and she pulled out an application, and she had this nice long conversation about how this woman really understood fashion, and, she would be a great asset to their team, and they would love to have her even part-time. She'd just be so great there, and how much the people coming to the store would appreciate, her style. And during that time, the caregiver rang up one item for the 50 bucks, got it all in the bag, and then headed out. It was interesting, and the woman was just beaming and she felt so good. And she's like, "Oh, I couldn't. My goodness, I'm retired. I just couldn't." But it made her so much happy, guys. And I'm all about bringing them joy. And it gave her so much joy. And in the car, they're driving home, and she said to the caregiver, "What do we get?" And she said, "Are you kidding? That pencil skirt, you looked so great in that. You had to get that." And she just smiled. She didn't even remember at that time all the other things she had tried on. So, how can we do things, and your person may not be in a place to go shopping or eat out, but for those of you that are, that's just a nice way to do this. Let's see. I want to go down to, there are some people, maybe they live with the daughter and the daughter needs to work. And so, do we need to go to a day center, senior center, whatever they call it in your area? Um, yeah, I don't want to ever insinuate that it's like on childcare or something like that. Some people are passive and are willing to go. They love, the entertainment. There was one place that I knew, they sent one county, they had a bus that would come to the house and the person could hop on the bus and go, and they could go 3 days a week, and it just helped his daughter out so much. There was another place the bus would come pick you up for your dialysis. My goodness, what else? But some people are very social and they love going to, a place where there are other individuals their age. You got other individuals that don't want to go. They don't want to be in you know, it seems like a baby place to them, and it's condescending and they don't want to go. And so there have been times where The daughter, would go with the mother, and they would be volunteers that day. They were volunteering because they just needed so much help in there, for all these older individuals, and she wouldn't give her mom the impression she's one of those individuals, but, that they really need volunteers. She even ordered volunteer, name tags. She had cleared this with the organization and, the people in charge, and they were willing to play along, and, she told them her mom really needed purpose, and she was really good at setting tables, setting out paper, setting out, supplies for an activity, wiping off a table, things like that. And she loved it. And, she slept better if she'd had a day with purpose like that. And so she would go with her for a couple of times. And then once she acclimated, then she was able to say, "Oh, you know what? I really need to run the store, and then I'll be back." And before you knew it, she was doing great, going to a place like that. Not everybody can, but it worked. My goodness, look what time it is already. Okay, I just certainly love talking with you and sharing ideas, and, this is Memory Care with Teresa Youngstrom. We're about out of time, but thank you for being here. I hope that you will like and share and subscribe. You know what? When we check the analytics, so we have 1,000 subscribers today, which is so exciting. But so many people view who are not subscribed, and actually more than half. So very interesting. I just hope that you will subscribe so we can just get this out to more and more people. There are a lot of people struggling with memory care, and they're all different. But there's a wealth of information that would apply to most, and that's really my goal, is to give you, tools to love your person more and bring them more joy, all right? I'm Teresa Youngstrom, and just remember, you got this.